Good morning, good morning. We needed to start out with a little bit of music. We're going to do some pretty hardcore topics today. So, are you ready?
I think we are.
You're ready. Super cool. We'll tune this down.
Welcome everyone to this first educational day in the blockchain IoT reseller trace project, which is led by CBS in partnership with the Royal Danish Academy, Alexandra Institute, and hosted by Lifestyle and Design Cluster, which is the two of us, Heidi Svane. My name is Frederick Svane. This is the first of 4 educational days that'll be hosted over the next 2 years. And just for good housekeeping purposes, this is being recorded, so now you all know. Heidi, would you put the graphics on the screen that show the progression of the project, of where we are and what we have ahead of us? Now you should see a map of where we are. And as you can see, smack in the middle on a green dot, you have the first educational day, and with today's date. So today, we'll spend the next couple of hours together looking at current blockchain and IoT solutions, covering the theory, an educational case presentation, and 2 business cases. And the key question for today's session is how to implement IoT on product, or how to make an identifier on individual products. What does this mean for a Danish-based company, and which criteria is important when choosing a solution? So let's briefly go over the program for today. We'll start off with saying welcome to all of you, which is what we're doing now. Then shortly after, we'll hand it over to CBS. That'll go over the digital twin and EU Digital Product Passport, or DPP. And that'll be with Thomas Jensen. How can IoT and blockchain technologies support sustainable and circular economy practice, with Lotta and Kasper, who are recently graduated master students. And then in the end, we'll go over how blockchain look in the industry and how it came together as a solution, and that'll be by Jan Damsgaard. So without further ado, we'll go into to the theory with Thomas Jensen and Jan Damsgaard from CBS, the Institute of Digitalization, and they'll be our guides. And they will be joined, like we said, by recently graduated master students, Lotta Moll and Kasper Müller-Lütgen. So Thomas and Jan, please take it away.
Thank you, and welcome from here to everyone. So we need the slide on.
Yep, working on it.
Yeah.
Right. Thomas, why don't you start introducing yourself a little bit, and then you'll be there in a minute.
Here we are Jan Damsgaard, professor at Institute for Digitalization, and myself, assistant professor here. And as we have done some research that we want to share with you, and we also have some master students, Lotta and Kasper, who have done their thesis and graduated with a high degree in June. And I think they have some lot of insights that you could benefit from, listen to and learning from. But it's some of the latest stuff. Please go to the next slide. We go straight on to the digital twin and the European Digital Product Passport. I will talk about that. So next slide. So first we have to understand what is digitalization and digitization. Today you have a lot of information that from the manufacturers and from the brand that is shared on printed labels on the garment, for example. And it's only accessible if you read it on the clothes. Sometimes you'll cut it off and so on. In the future, we'll have the same information, maybe some additional information, and then there will be a identifier like a QR code. You'll scan it, and then the consumer with the smartphones can see information, more detailed information for sustainable purpose as well. Next slide. So the digital twin, a twin is someone that is born at the same birth. And the digital twin is where one of the twin is a digital version and the other one is a physical one. Here's some examples we have from previous prototypes. You can read them later. The main thing here is that the EU digital product passport, the next click please, is considered to be a digital twin, and that is what EU characterizes it as. So just for your understanding, this is about digital twin. The next slide. So here's an example of a digital twin. I went into the Ralph Lauren shop in Magasin, and you can take any of the shops. You go in, you pick any piece of clothes on and you put your camera there, and you see the QR code immediately provide a URL, and then you get a lot of detailed information that you see on the right. That is how it works, just so we understand how this identifier helps us to get access to more information. Next slide. So the EU have similar ambitions, and you see here some example of prototypes presented by EU. And then there's a lot of articles describing what is expected by the product passport. It should be a set of data that is specific to the product. It should help to do eco-design, follow those principles, and that is described in the different chapters, different articles. You can go and read it. But I tried to take out a summary from that, and that is that it will be mandatory for all products that is on the European market from 2030. Next slide. And it should support sustainability. They also have presented some of the working principles. Slide is, yeah. So here's the working principles. The main thing is that there is currently no standards, and it's to be defined what the standards should be. So we don't know exactly which information is needed, but we know that the economic operator, meaning the manufacturer and brand, they'll be responsible for collecting the information. So the examples we saw before is an example of a brand that collect the information and present it as shown in the prototypes. Also, it will be mandatory to have identification of each product. For example, following GS1 European article number and the standard I marked there, you can look at the detail. But the other thing is that it will require to have an identifier, for example, the QR code as I showed you, but there could be alternatives to that. And the last thing, if you click on the slide again, is that there will be an EU register, similar to the EU register that we have for hardware that we, if you buy a new refrigerator, then you can see if it's the energy consumption it has. Similar, it will be so that you, with your phone, just scan, and then you can see how sustainable your clothes is. That is what we expect. So there you can decide to buy it or to refuse it. So you can get started already if you want, and you can find the sustainable information you have available now and that you want to collect from your downstream supply chain partners. You can request that, so you have time to find it. Most of them have it already, so it's just a matter of getting access to it. You can look at the identification of each product. Should it be at type level, a batch, a collection, a unique one? You can experiment with that, trying different identifiers. And then you could consider which R strategies will be relevant for your business. I'll come back to those in more detail. But here's an example that was shared by EU, that Zalando, they have a brand called Sign, and they have made this QR code, and then you get this information. And then you'll have information about how to resell the product, for example. Next slide. Here's another example of the detailed information they have, how to detailed care information, detailed service information, and so on. Next slide. So what information should be in here? So you can look at the list. Which one do you think is relevant for the digital product passport? This have hundreds of people have been interviewed in this survey that King et al. Did, and this is the priority list of what they answered. So enable sustainable consumer decision making is the top one. And EU have implemented that in their working principles, so you see there should be information for various partners around the garment here. Next slide. Yeah, so for the identifiers, if we look at that in details, then there's a lot of options. You can have barcode, RFID, QR code, Bluetooth, NFCs, watermark, puffins, DNA, and threads collected on the badge by NFTs. And some of those are accessible by the consumer, some only by special equipment or special internal access. And here's some example of those that have implemented this. For example, Lobbyklubben, they have made a system where you can resell stuff, and you will go and have a consumer-to-consumer resell, and they will register everything with a barcode. The NFCs, I have those small here, so small buttons for green cotton here in this case that you can have on the clothes, and then you can see that, scan that with your smartphone. Also, I have, no, that's fine. Then we asked, we looked at 80 initiatives on digital product passport and asked what is the identifier you have chosen. And some of them have chosen a single one, some of them have a combination, but all of them have the, except for very few, have the QR code as the main one. So it seems it's a good one to start with. Next slide. So takeaways here in consideration is which business processes do you want to support with the IoT, and what part of the product lifecycle do you want to support? And there I have collected some examples. We follow using the 9 to 10 R's with strategies how to be more sustainable. And here you can look and see if some of those could inspire you. You are free to go and test them out or try them. For example, the return for Spider Sport or the Zurück, where people return their used equipment, and then other ones can benefit from that. And we also have this, for example, here I have this bag, which is made out of worn working clothes by Opsy, who have clothes have been used. Now we get a new life as a bag for, yeah, you prolong the life of the textile in that way. But I think we will move on to Lotte and Kasper and get some more details, insight about IoT and blockchain, how that could help and support sustainability. So Heidi, please switch the presentation. And if anyone have a question and have some more examples, you're welcome to mail me or to contact me about this. Thank you. So Lotte and Kasper, you're welcome to present your research findings. And yeah.
Hey everyone, Heidi, are you gonna share the slides? Perfect. Yeah, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our results here. Kasper and I are gonna quickly introduce you to what we did in our master thesis now, and then we're gonna focus on the reselling part of it and hope that we can help you with that. So yeah, we wrote about how can digital technologies such as blockchain and IoT support circular economy practices in the textile and fashion industry. Just as a little background information, the circular economy practices, we mean by that all kinds of practices that follow the idea of the circular economy, as Thomas just introduced the different R strategies, which can be reselling, refusing hazardous materials, recycling materials just to eliminate waste and pollution, and circulate products with a higher value for as long as possible. And we based our research on different interviews. So we interviewed 9 fashion brands, most of them here from the Nordic countries. Then we also extended our interviews by talking to 3 resale partners, as the reselling evolved as one of the dominating strategies that many brands are following these days. And then we also talked to 3 blockchain providers to get a bit more insight into how blockchain can actually be used, as we saw that many fashion brands were lacking some more knowledge there. So we found that relevant. And we also took into account different examples and solutions that we found on the market. Yeah, so now we could go to the next slide. So just as a little background information, throughout the interviews, we found that fashion brands currently have a lot of motivations, different motives for looking into circular economy practices and also testing IoT and blockchain solutions for this, but also a number of challenges occurred with testing them out. And the literature and also best practices on blockchain IoT in practice are quite slim at the moment. So that's why we try to give an overview and start the topic. And here's some key insights that we're going to introduce you to now. First of all, that we found some different resale models that fashion brands are employing at the moment in the market, which then have different implications on the data collection, also just the motives, how profitable the resale model could be, and also how you engage with the customers. Then in general, blockchain and IoT can enhance the transparency throughout the whole resale process and also allow brands to learn more about the products after the point of sale, which can be very helpful. And we found for many brands that they are very interested in learning more about this. But then also to leverage the potential of IoT in the resale market, it is critical that the data carrier stays attached to the clothes, which poses a big challenge to many fashion brands, as we found, but we will dive into that later. And then lastly, the blockchain solutions that are on the market right now and supporting resale activities are more feasible for high value items. And we will also explain you why it is like this at the moment and how this could change. So now to the next slide, please. Yeah, so first of all, I would just quickly introduce you to the different resale models that we found. So there are 2 models where we have a C2C option, where either the brand has a branded section on a third-party platform like Teaser or Vestiaire Collective, and therefore can also cooperate with the platform to learn more about the products and how they're running on the resale market. But also more and more brands are now releasing their own branded C2C shops. So their customers can trade their own products on the platform, but the brand doesn't take the clothes back. So they are not getting in touch with the used clothes. They're just facilitating the platform. And then we have 2 other models where the people or the brands are buying back the clothes or taking the clothes back. So in that case, they have some reverse logistics. So they get in touch with the clothes. They have the option to grade them, see how the condition is, maybe also do some little repairing to them. And then either with the consignment model, the brands upload the items on the web shop for half a year or something. And then once it gets sold, the customer who wants to sell the clothes gets the money. And otherwise, at one point when it's not getting sold, it would get back to the first owner. And otherwise, if the clothes, if the brands buy the clothes back, then they would just resell it in their own shop and earn money from that, and also then have the option to repair the clothes, etc. So depending on which model fashion brands choose, that has implications for the data collection, the authenticity of the product that they can also provide to the new buyers, and in general, the efforts that it takes to taking back clothes and facilitating the reselling of them. So now we could dive into IT when we look at the next slide. Perfect. So here, first a little overview how IoT and blockchain now can support the reselling efforts in the market. So when looking at IoT, this especially helps with tracking the clothes by the brand throughout its whole life cycle, which can be very helpful. Then also providing IoT with the clothes can make it easier for customers to resell the clothes when the brand offers opportunity where saved information about the product can then easily be saved and used by the customers to list it on a branded resale platform. Then also this means that for the new buyer of used clothes, the same product information is available. So once they get the clothes and the data carrier is still attached to them, they also get the information that is stored in the digital product password, for example. And then further, it can help authenticating products to make sure, especially with all the counterfeit on the secondhand market, that the product really comes from that brand and that it was also purchased by the brand earlier. So lastly, IoT then can also enable NFTs and link to them when brands offer NFTs with their clothes and help transferring the ownership at a later point. So now looking at blockchain, in addition to IoT, that can enhance the IoT solution by providing even more transparent information and an immutable ledger of transactions. So thereby it provides a higher level of security. And also now getting back to the NFTs, the ownership of products can be transferred, which also allows more or higher customer engagement and, for example, targeted marketing than for the customers. But for IoT to support the resale practices, it is important that the data carrier stays attached to the clothes throughout the whole life cycle. Next slide, please. Here we now listed some examples as they might be relevant for you. Some of them were already mentioned by Thomas, for example, with Armed Angels, who run a pilot project with circular fashion. So they have the circularity ID, which is an NFC tag in the sleeve of their shirts or some of the shirts. And that is a test from them to see how many people are using that. And then also it provides the customer with opportunities to give back the product in the end when the customer doesn't want to have the product anymore. So in the beginning, you can see all product information, also information about the brand and where all the material is coming from and where exactly, how everything is used. And then once the customer doesn't want to have it anymore, they get incentivized to scanning the NFC tag and then sending the clothes back to the brand, which can then decide if it can be reused or if the clothes should be recycled. Similarly, Eon and Chloe are participating in offering instant resale for their bags. That was also already introduced. And also Digimark and Ralph Lauren are collaborating with offering QR codes on all of the clothes, which are already in production since a couple of years now. So thereby it allows new customers to get the product authenticated that they are buying from Ralph Lauren, and also to get more information about the clothes. Then some of the fashion brands that we interviewed also had some very valuable insights to add here. For example, one Danish fashion brand who is mainly providing kids and children clothes. They had a pilot project where they offered product information also based on blockchain with all of the clothes, or some of the clothes. But back then, it was a couple of years ago, they found that not too many people actually scanned the QR code as the technology wasn't that mature yet, which now changed these days. Then another fashion brand tried a resale tag also on some of the clothes to make it easier for customers to list their products on a third-party platform so that all the product information is already available. And then the customers only need to scan the QR code and can list the product for sale. While there was still a pilot project they are working on, they already are now offering QR codes with all of their products for providing more product information at the point of sale, which are then also staying in the clothes. Then another fashion brand who is providing luxury brands products, they use QR codes for authenticating their products, and they ran a pilot project in China where people, when they went to the store, could check if the clothes are really produced by their brand. But there, for example, they found that some of the customers weren't really sure yet how they could use it and why they should do it when they buy it in the shop that is officially from their brand. But here there's a big opportunity, especially in the resale market, when you don't have the option to buy it in the shop, but you could still see it and get the product authenticated when you buy it on the resale market. And then the last brand that has QR codes implemented in all of their clothes is a UK-based shirt brand who are offering take-back system. So all the clothes have the same QR code in the clothes. And when people scan that, they get the option to send it back and then get a voucher for the clothes. So we also found that many of the brands are working with incentives to get the products back then at one point and to engage the customer. Yeah, the next slide, please. So now just to summarize some of the categories that we came up with that are important when it comes to implementing IoT and that fashion brands are struggling with at the moment are, first of all, deciding which functionalities should be added to the QR code or the NFC tag, which are the dominantly used data carriers at the moment that we found, as Thomas also mentioned earlier. Just because also many fashion brands mentioned that those are the ones or the data carriers that people know how to use and are curious about testing out when they see them. So most of the brands are providing product information, which is also related to the digital product passport. Many brands also mentioned that it might be very helpful to give more care instructions. And then, as said, offer resale options, as well as authentication, and in the case of luxury brands, NFTs. So this is something that the brand just needs to decide what you would like to offer to your customers, especially at the end of the product's life cycle. And then when it comes to the placement, there are some challenges depending on the product category. If it should be added to the care label or the brand label, or if it's just enough to have it on the hang tag for product information at the point of sale, or when we talk about NFCs, how you could embed it into the hem or somewhere else in the clothes so that it can't be cut off. And lastly, the question would be if you want to provide a generic QR code or NFC tag or a unique identifier. That would again also then depend if you want to just offer product information for the product category, or if you want to provide unique information about one specific item, and also then link that to a product category in the cloud. So here you can just look at the slide also later and dive more into it, because depending on the categories, you can then see which would be most feasible. So just to go through it really quickly, for low value items where the chances are quite low that it might be resold in the aftermarket, it might be enough to just have a QR code on the hang tag, where you can provide more product information. But for medium price clothes, it can already be a good opportunity to attach QR codes or NFC tags to the clothes and make sure that they stay within the clothes to give people the option to resell the clothes, and then also again learn more about the products after the point of sale. And same goes for luxury clothes, where you can then also think about offering an NFT to engage more with the customer, to make them claim the ownership online for the product and that they own it. And that way engage more with them. And lastly, a big challenge when it comes to baby and kids clothes, as usually all labels are being cut out quite at the beginning. But even there, it would be very relevant to offer resale options when the span of people using, or babies using the clothes is so short. So there are different solutions that are coming up in the market now as digital watermarks or puffins. Could be also an idea that could be printed on the clothes, but as of now, we saw mostly QR codes and NFC tags in practice. Now we could move to the next slide.
Yes, I'm a little bit sick, so I hope you can still understand me. But yes, so now we are moving to blockchain, and blockchain is, of course, a very new topic, and because of that, in the existing literature, blockchain literature, which is delving into the resale market, is very, very slim and at the very early stages. So you can find only very limited literature regarding this topic. But on the other hand, there are first fashion brands who are already using blockchain to enhance their resale experience. And also there are blockchain providers, so third-party providers who provide these fashion brands with blockchains that they can use for these cases. So as I said, on one hand, we have very little literature, but then on the other hand, there are already brands and technology companies out there who are providing this technology. And the number of these providers is rising really quickly in the last, has been rising very quickly in the last years. And that is because most fashion brands can't, of course, develop their own blockchain. And so they use these third-party providers to use their blockchain to provide these services. So if you could move to the next slide, because here we can actually see some of these blockchain providers, and some of them, like maybe the two most popular right now, are Ariane and Aura, and both of them are proven. They work. They already work with quite a few fashion brands. So for example, Ariane is working with Moncler, while Aura, for example, is a blockchain consortium which is working with Louis Vuitton, the Prada Group, and a lot of luxury brands. And they already have whole product lines on these platforms and which use blockchain. So this is really important to know that the opportunity is there to use it. But of course, it is a new topic, so not all brands are already looking into it. And then if you could move to the next slide. Blockchain, of course, is a very complicated topic, and so it's sometimes a bit difficult to understand also the different problems or different specifics here. But what we normally differentiate on is the blockchain type and the consensus. And here I think also these two are very important to mention, because a lot of the question marks come up with these two topics, and some of them we can here, I think, overcome, because when we look at the blockchain type, for example, what's something that is always questioned, I think, when we talk to fashion brands as well, is like data privacy, and where is the data stored, who can watch it, who can see it, who can edit it, and so on. So what we can see that there are permission blockchains, where the access to the network and the ability to participate in the consensus process is restricted to a specific set of participants. So for example, that could be supply chain partners or the fashion brand itself. And here, encryption keys can be used to manage the access. So only these supply chain partners and fashion brands have access to the blockchain. On the other hand, there are permissionless blockchains, where anyone can join the network and participate in the consensus process without requiring explicit permission. So that is, of course, for all of these payment options that are now coming on that are blockchain-based, most of them are also permissionless blockchains. And what we found is that in the resale sector, other than, for example, there's also, of course, a huge topic regarding blockchain when it comes to tracking the product provenance, right? And when we look at these blockchains, most of them use permission blockchains, because here it's most important that the supply chain partners and also the fashion brand adds information to the blockchain as the product moves along the supply chain. But for the resale market, it is a bit different. There, as I said, it's not really fully established yet which blockchain type will be used most, because we can't see both. But a lot of them are actually permissionless, because here I actually want the customer to also add information to the blockchain, right? It's not only me who should add this information, but it's also the customer who should information and should be able to also view these informations very easily. And of course, what has to be said is, like, even though it's a permissionless blockchain, everybody can theoretically edit and view the content. It's not, they also need encryption keys, for example. Not everyone can just go to the blockchain and add whatever they want, right? So that's important to know. And then another big thing with blockchain is always that, wow, it has such a high energy consumption. So blockchains maybe are not really fitting the idea of the circular economy, which is all about, okay, how can we actually lower our environmental input, right? But here has to be said that while there's different, right, like with blockchain, there's different consensus mechanism of how it is proven, or like how it's tested if somebody can add something to the blockchain, to explain it very simply. And these consensus mechanisms can be very, very energy consuming, because it is so secure, these blockchains. So there's a lot of testing, so to say, going on, and there are different consensus mechanisms out there. And here, the POW consensus, which has often gotten like a very bad media rep, because it uses so much energy. So I think a lot of you have maybe even read these news where certain blockchains use more energy than whole countries. And all of these blockchains use the POW consensus mechanism. So this is maybe a consensus mechanism that is not very fitting for the idea of the circular economy and also for resale purposes. But what we have seen is that also something on the slide before we could see is that all of these new blockchain providers, which are now coming up, providing resale opportunities, are not using the POW consensus mechanism, but rather the POS or POA mechanism, consensus mechanism. And these are very energy efficient. At least their energy consumption is way, way lower than the one of the POW, and not really affecting or don't really have a negative effect. So what we see and what we also recommend, of course, is that when blockchains are being developed for the circular economy, the POS and POA should be used or are also mostly used because they are so much more energy efficient. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So there's a problem when we look at blockchain for the resale market. Right now, all of these blockchain providers, they offer NFTs. And NFTs are stored on the blockchain. And what they do is they represent a specific item. And this specific item is then given from the fashion brand to the consumer. And the consumer then owns the NFT. So the consumer also has access to the blockchain. And then he can transfer his NFT, which represents a product in real life, can present the product in real life, to, for example, the resale customer, to the other customer, or to the next person he's selling the product to. So this person is now also the digital owner of the product and can also authenticate that the product is real. He can also, for example, store all the life cycle history on one of those NFTs. So if the product is repaired, I can store it on the brand could store that on the NFT. So then the next customer can see, okay, what actually has happened to the product after the point of sale. As I said, NFTs can track changes to the product. And also they offer a great opportunity for fashion brands to stay in contact with the customer, because I can now directly market products, other products, or the brand to the customer, to also the resale customer, which I could normally not reach. There, of course, we really have to also consider again these two different resale models, right? C2C and then the B2C one. With the B2C, I have an opportunity to stay in contact with the customer, right? But with the C2C one, where the customer is selling directly to another customer, I really don't normally know who's the next resale customer, and I can't really target him or explain to him something about this product. And their NFTs are a great opportunity. But the problem here is that I need to store every single product on an NFT, or like every single product needs to be represented in an NFT, or that is how the current solution at least look like. And that means that this is mostly feasible for luxury brands, but because as you can imagine, normally H&M, for example, can't really store every single product in an NFT and provide these services. So this is something that we can mostly see for luxury brands. But I want to emphasize here that this doesn't mean needs to be only for luxury brands. It can also mostly be applicable for luxury lines. So also brands who maybe want to bring out something special, a special line or a special product can use NFTs for this one specific product, an example. But that is, of course, something to keep in mind. So maybe next slide. Yeah. So now to also conclude and look at the takeaways. Using a blockchain and NFTs can increase customer engagement and data collection, as I have explained previously. Now, also we see that additionally IoT can ease the resale and provide the buyer when combined with blockchain with authentic information. It has so great potential for brands to learn more about their products after the point of sale. Something, by the way, we have heard from every fashion brand we've interviewed, that they would like more information of what happens to their products after the point of sale. And it also allows them to stay in touch with the reselling customer, as well as new customers that are buying the clothes. Important is, of course, as Lotte already explained, that the data carrier is attached to the clothes and also stays attached to the clothes to provide these services. Something I have explained now beforehand is that the feasibility of NFTs for resale purposes is not always given. Partnerships with technology providers are necessary right now. and technologies need to be understood though also by the fashion brands. And that's something we also want to emphasize here, because it is of course important for the fashion brands to communicate the value to the customers, or to at least, you don't need to implement it of course yourself, but you need to at least understand the concept of the technology. So you have at least some knowledge of what the technology is. And then of course there also needs to be a certain commitment to the strategy, which is critical, as I said before, it is important to actively communicate, okay, we have a resale platform and provide these services. So the products you're buying here, they are authenticated, or you can authenticate them. And so it's really important to communicate this and stay consistent with this strategy. So now, if we go to the next slide, at the end, we would like to tell you, or like ask you to ask yourself some questions that we think are very important, and every fashion brand nowadays should actually ask themselves. So which data do you want to collect about your clothes after the point of sale? How do you want to engage with your customers? Then also, do you want to offer solely product information through IoT data carriers attached to the clothes? Or do you want to use it to support solutions that extend the life cycle of the clothes? For example, the easy resale of the product. And then as well, how are clothes currently performing on the resale market? How much value do they have on the resale market? Because of course, that is something that vastly affects these strategies and these solutions we have just explained. But yes, I think that is it from our part. I can say we're very happy to be here. And of course, if there are any questions, or yeah, you can also ask them, I think, right now. Maybe give us I'm not 100% sure about the timeline, but otherwise you can of course also send us an email. Our emails, I think, are also in the PowerPoint.
Thank you very much, Lotta and Kasper. And if some of the participants are interested to have a similar project, then we have other master students coming up with thesis work that you could collaborate with and get similar insights as we just heard from Lotta and Kasper. So thank you very much, Lotta and Kasper, for now. I think we'll leave the questions to later, or to direct contact you. And we'll move on to Jan Damsgaard as the next topic. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Please put on the slides. So what you can say is that, wow, there's a lot of opportunities in this, and we've heard different solutions. But if you move on to the next slide, then I think that the situation of the blockchain IoT world is something like this. And there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of confusion, and this picture is actually from AIDS Day. AIDS Day was the day in September, I think it's actually September 1st, so that's tomorrow, in 1967, when Sweden changed from driving in the left side of the road to driving in the right side of the road. And there was a lot of confusion about what was going on. So right now we're in the same situation with the blockchain and with IoT. There are all these opportunities, but we lack kind of a clear way of going. And for once, I would also argue that we should be careful, or we as the textile and fashion industry should be a little bit careful about what standard they choose, because the standard we choose now will have long precautions going into the next 20, 30, 40 years, where we will be kind of locked to the system or to the standards that we use. So if you look into the next slide, then there was all this that you can put any information on this, but we need some kind of standardization, and that's what EU is providing with the digital twin and the digital passport that's coming. So this is a standard, and there are several reasons for standards. The whole idea of industrialization is standardization. So the reasons is economics of scale. That means that you can produce using the standard, and then knowing that there will be a demand for exactly that. And then it's also reduction of transaction costs. Those are the costs involved in doing a transaction. So if you use a standard, then we both know what we're talking about, and therefore we don't need to discuss that. We don't need to spend time and money on establishing that. There are some pretty persistent standards out there, and the distance between rails is one. So it's very easy to decide on which one it should be, or you can choose any one, but once you put down the rails, then it's very difficult to change to a different one. We already talked about the left side or the right side driving. In Sweden, they actually asked the Swedes, do you want to change? And the Swedes said, no, it's working perfectly well. So it wasn't until there was a courageous bunch of politicians who decided, no, we have to change. In Austria, it was a different thing because that happened during Anschluss when German occupation in 1938, I think it was. So standards are very persistent. Also, there's very little likelihood that the US is changing to the metric system, right? And there's also, before we laugh too much of the Americans, we should think about why do we really have 24 hours, 60 minutes, and 60 seconds? That's very difficult to work with. Let's move on to the next slide. So often you see these battles between different standard systems, and there was actually a very famous battle between AC and DC, that's alternating current and direct current. So that's those were fighting against each other, and the Edison chose actually DC, and Tesla with the Westinghouse Electric Company chose AC. And they were stimulating the demand and not the supply, right? And they were also actually trying to talk about the dangers of the other system, right? So at the bottom you can see that they were talking about that AC is so dangerous that it's even using for electrocuting people, right? So, but in the end, the transformer killed the competition, and that created General Electric, which is one of the big companies of today. So what we don't want is a situation in the lifestyle and textile industry where there are too many competitions going on between different standards. And also who's the owner of these standards is paramount. So what we would like to do is to create a situation where there will be a common ground for creating a standard that everybody can live with in the textile industry. One reason is also, and then we see that on the next slide, is these network effects. So I'm pretty sure that it must have been great students such as Lotta or some of the other CBS students who were able to sell the first telephone, because if you're the first one to have a telephone, then it has very little value. Who are you going to call? But as soon as more people get a telephone, then it also becomes more useful to have the same telephone. That's the same with standards. So what we have here is a situation where the more people that adopt a standard, the more beneficial it becomes to adopt. And then we have this this situation where it'll probably escalate to become one dominant standard. So therefore, it's quite important who owns this standard. So before we adopt any of these proprietary technologies from the very kind technology suppliers, we should know that what we do is that we are creating a standard which may be not under the control of us, but under the control of different entities that are doing this for profit. But let's have a look at the next slide. That's where I'm talking about some of the blockchain configurations that we could set up. And you could, of course, set your own up, which doesn't make sense, because blockchain is always only valuable when you're hooked up with some of your suppliers and some of your customers, and hopefully some of your customers, and also some of your suppliers. There are so the next one is bilateral, and that is one company setting up a bilateral implementation of blockchain with one supplier or one customer, and of course that's very costly and also quite ineffective. A single supply chain, that with only certain suppliers and only with certain customers, is also quite costly and also somewhat ineffective. Then you could have one powerful actor. That's called the hub and spoke model that you see to the right with the graphics. And there you could have online marketplaces that are going into this. Amazon is doing blockchain, Alibaba is doing blockchain, Rakuten is doing blockchain, and then they also become the dominator of these solutions, and they both own and they also control this, right? So they may not be the best of interest, but it might very well happen so. There's also tech giants that want to go into this. So IBM has even developed their own language for this, Hyperledger Fabric, which is dominated by IBM. And again, that will secure their position, but also their dominance in the area. Then we have the giant retailers. So Walmart is another one that can dictate this. They tried to do that a few years ago with the RFID, and they were somewhat successful in doing that. But again, do we really want a single company to dominate this? Then we could ask trade and industry associations. It could be lifestyle and design cluster to do this, to be the ones that decide on the standard. But then we all know also that with all the good intentions and all the members that are in there, then they will not move faster than the slowest. And also they will always, or very often, look for the lowest common denominator and it's not very effective. Then we could have national initiatives, but supply chains are really global, so that doesn't make sense either. EU have earlier been involved in this when we worked with other things that's very bureaucratic and political, but now the EU product passport is coming, so let's see how much they can do that. But and then again, there's the UN. And they did UN EDIFACT, which was EDI for administration, commerce, and trade, also one of these. So there's a lot of actors here, and what I would like to see is maybe a different way of doing this. And let's have a look at the next slide, please. That is, could this actually be a situation where we could build what I would call a common solution for blockchain IoT in the fashion and textile industry? We've seen a number of permissioned blockchains fail in the recent years. So we were all shocked when TradeLens, what was set up by Maersk and IBM, ceased to operate in the beginning of this year, because it was kind of one of the poster childs or poster items that were put forward on successful blockchain situations. But that didn't go so well. There's also been the attempt to establish a stable coin by Facebook and Meta called Libra and Diem, and that also was not something that was so successful. Then you could think yourself, maybe there's a different way we can do that. Here on a blockchain, what you can do is you can establish a smart contract that stipulates the idea of creating a decentralized autonomous organization. That sounds very abstract, but if you think back, then we have done that earlier, and an organization is also kind of an abstraction. So if you want to think of this, then think of the cooperative movement. And cooperative movement will actually have been very successful. They have also stood the test of time, and they also are still owned by the original ones that established this. So if you look at Arla, the dairy giant, they are pretty big, 11,202 million euros in revenue, but they're still owned by the local producers. It was founded in 1881, and again, it was not a big company, and they that did this. It was actually the milk producers. Or Danish Crown, also pretty big companies, also owned by the farmers and established in 1887. And then, of course, there's also Coop Denmark, which is also pretty big and owned by the consumers. So what could be an interesting take on this is, would it be possible to establish something like the cooperative movement in the area of blockchain for the textile and fashion industry? Next slide, please. So maybe this is abstract, but I think that these decentralized autonomous organizations will be something to reckon with in the future. And there's a lot of controversy over this X or Twitter as we talk about it, but Jack Dorsey, who is the founder of Twitter, said he should never have incorporated Twitter as a company. He should have incorporated as an open protocol, i.e. the same idea that was behind the cooperative movement that happened 150 years ago, which we have long and good traditions in Denmark because we are very trusting society. I think that was all for me. On the next slide, there's just a kind of a checklist on what you should do before you choose a blockchain solution, because it's not only looking at who has the best offer, you have to extend that and think about how will that position you. And when you start using a solution like this, you also provide a vote for which one will be the dominant in the years to come. So therefore, tread carefully and think about exactly what are the rationale for doing these things.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Jan. As the next thing, we have additional two master students, Annabelle and Carl Emil, who will present what is the true story behind your clothes. So welcome to Annabelle and Carl Emil. And Heidi, will you share the slides?
We will share our own slides. So just make sure that everybody can see the slides.
Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
We'll take silence as a yes.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe speak a little up.
so we can try and move. Yes. So can everybody see the slides? It's
Yes.
Yes.
perfect.
All right. Great. Well, good morning, everyone.
You speak a bit louder or move closer to the microphone. It's quite difficult to hear you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Annabelle, this is Carl, and we're also really happy to have the opportunity to speak a little bit about our thesis research. So we've heard a lot about the technologies and blockchain and IoT and potentials, and we want to, or in our research, we sort of started at a different point, and not being purely rooted in the assessing a specific technology, but more understanding the requirements for a digital product passport from an organizational point of view. So really, like, what are the general needs for enabling a digital product passport? And then also, of course, looking into the purpose or the role that technologies such as blockchain and IoT could have. And a bit of our methodology, or what we actually did in our research, we collaborated with industry stakeholders such as Green Cotton, Creative Stay, also talked with Textile Pioneers, and we had another expert from Deloitte who specializes in blockchain, who we also spoke with, and then we were also inspired by Spore's product storytelling capabilities. And with this input, we kind of mapped out a very complex web of requirements that shows how the requirements relate to each other, and we tried to group that a bit. And but before presenting those findings, we want to start a little bit more in the why, as in we've heard briefly from Thomas that there are several proposed purposes of a digital product passport, and we want to add to that with the potential benefits that can be reaped by the clothing and textile industry, but also the challenges that come with implementing a digital product passport.
Slide.
Oh.
How does?
Oh.
There we go. Right. So we want to first talk a bit about why, besides the fact that it's going to be a mandatory EU initiative, why companies should care about a DPP, and what challenges that will come when implementing a digital product passport later on. Firstly, one of the main benefits is that it allows you to be more transparent, allowing your consumers to see detailed information about your products, thus building a new level of trust with your consumer base. Furthermore, the digital product passport will allow you to more efficiently communicate your sustainable practices and your eco-friendly practices down to the specific clothing piece. And finally, we talk about supply chain optimization in the sense that the new amount a huge amount of shared data that's going to be put throughout the whole supply chain. It's going to allow companies to better understand inefficiencies that goes on, both operational and eco-friendly inefficiencies. But then going back to the huge amount of data that's going to be streamlined throughout the whole supply chain, one of the main challenges is going to be a data collection problem, gathering data from several tiers back, depending on where you're situated in your own supply chain, and also the standardization issue of the format and structure and syntax of the data that's going to be transferred throughout the supply chain. Furthermore, as we heard before, there's going to be a lot of competition to be the digital product passport provider, and all these different systems has to be integrated into already your own existing systems, which is also going to serve as a main challenge. And then there's the whole collaboration and stakeholder engagement, getting all the people throughout the supply chain to be engaged and sharing these new data points and opening more up about their own business and own sustainable practices.
Yeah, so with these challenges in mind, we put out the goal to get a little bit better understanding of like where to start as a company. What do I need to do kind of in this situation? So that's when we had several rounds with different industry experts and stakeholders, and tried to design this requirement overview that you can see. And in the pre-read, we shared this more simplified version of it, but actually when placing the requirements, it looks a little bit more like this, and then the web becomes a bit more apparent. So this diagram shows the 3 overall categories that we classified the needs into. Those can be of technical nature. They could be belonging more on the stakeholder side, or it's more on the government bodies, which would then be the regulatory requirements. And what this Venn diagram also shows is the overlapping parts. So wherever the circles intertwine is where we saw requirements that are from several or from both classes, you could say. And then within each of these 3 overall requirement classes, we made subgroups to drill down more into the complexity or try to make more sense of it. So for instance, we found that consumer interaction would be a part or a subgroup in the stakeholder requirements. And then you can see in the technical requirements, there are quite a few, like there's a subgroup on interoperability. And now to give a specific example of one of the interconnected requirements, one thing that our interviewers expressed was that there's a need for a digital product passport system to be decentralized rather than owned by like one big tech player, which would then require both collaboration among stakeholders, so a stakeholder requirement, but it also requires a technological capability of decentralization and modularity. So that's where we saw both sides coming in. And just to highlight, of course, you're not supposed to be reading all these requirements. We're happy to share that detailed list with you. But it's also to say that this is not an exhaustive list or that this is mutually exclusive and that we feel like we've captured it all, but we've captured a portion of it that already shows the complexity and something that we would consider as a next step also for an organization would be to then go in and prioritize this a bit, as in coming back to the point of where do you start. And this prioritization hasn't happened as part of our research, but it still serves as a representation of the interdependencies and the complexity behind this.
Yes. So now we've understood more about what's the purpose of a DPP and the requirements seen from an organizational perspective and what's needed for DPP. But in the very end, the purpose of a DPP is to tell the story about your clothes, both from an operational standpoint to a certain degree, but also from a sustainable standpoint. And then we wanted to figure out, well, how can blockchain IoT help tell the so true story, the actual true story behind your clothes? So we found that blockchain IoT can help to exploit the benefits of a DPP and also address some of the challenges that one could face. One of the main ones has been that blockchain can implement a yet to see unprecedented level of trust and transparency by securely storing all the data in an immutable digital ledger, thus providing a better certainty for consumers, knowing that the data that they see and the information that they see about the products and about the sustainable practices are actually what's in there and what's been going on, rather than it's maybe been manipulated, thus just further enhancing the trust that you can build with your consumer base. And secondly, with IoT, what you can do, what this allows you to do is actually bring them into your brand universe by allowing your consumers to interact with your clothes and thus interact with your brand universe, your version of a DPP, where you can further mediate your own sustainable practices, other clothes, maybe resale opportunities, mediate whatever communicative message that you want to send out through your clothes, and thus, so to say, drawing a full circle around your brand universe and luring your customers into being more loyal customers, maybe, or appreciating the brand universe more. So we see that blockchain IoT, although they provide certain capabilities that are definitely positive, what our main finding has been is that it's not enough. As we saw with the requirements, there's technical requirements, and blockchain IoT certainly complement those technical requirements for a digital product passport very well. But you need so much more. You need the stakeholders, you need the regulatory, so you need a more holistic approach in which you engage your stakeholders and both upstream and downstream tiers from your supply chain to truly succeed with a digital product passport, and also to succeed with blockchain and IoT. But what we really want to leave you is some questions that you can ask yourself, right?
Yeah, so coming back again, like, so where to start, and we've also seen it in previous presentations where you were left with questions for reflection. We want to do the same, and we thought, okay, so first, to sort of tackle this list of requirements that we came up with, it's necessary to understand, okay, what of these technical requirements can we maybe fulfill? Do we have systems that are interoperable and that are modular and could be integrated with an IoT or blockchain solution? So it's about assessing your technological maturity in that sense. And then for the stakeholder side, we have a lot of requirements regarding the communication and sort of, you know, understanding the supply chain partners, how far back or upstream or downstream in your supply chain are you able to have any kind of visibility as of now? And how would this have to change to accommodate a digital product passport? And then ideally, like, how can you foster and improve collaboration across the industry? So what this project is aiming to also support, and what you can do as an organization to help with that. So yeah, I think that was it from our end. If you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to us as well. And yeah, back to or Heidi.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Jan and Thomas, for kicking it off. But I think most of all, thank you to Annabelle and to Carl Emil and to Lotta and Casper. I was pretty amazed by the presentations, by how well you communicate topics that are fairly complex to understand. So I think this is kind of an advertisement piece for our end. If any of the businesses out there are looking for competencies within this, these guys have recently graduated and are free to work, probably for a very limited amount of time. So get them while they're hot, and we're happy to connect. I thought this was excellent. But now that you've had insights in the theory behind these topics, and that you've heard the case studies, we'd like you to reflect. And as time is running, because we're having fun, we're cutting this down to a 5-minute break where we'd ask you to spend time just on your own on the following question. Just reflect on what are the pros and cons you can see for your brand or your business as it relates to the technology presented today and the opportunities that it can offer. So it is 11:09 now. We'll be generous and give you 6 minutes. So we'll reconvene at 11:15. Thank you so much for now. All right, guys, welcome back. We hope you have had some fruitful thoughts, and we're actually not going to go into them now, but please keep them in mind for an exercise that we'll do a group breakout by the end of this meeting. So now that you've been introduced to the theory and a case story, you've had a moment to reflect on it. Now it's time for some real industry cases. And first, we're very pleased to welcome Morten Lund Pedersen, who's Sustainability Manager at Fritz Hansen. And Morten, I can see you on the screen. I'd like you to introduce yourself and give your presentation of Fritz Hansen's work and experiences with unique identifiers. And we'd love to know what perspectives you see from Fritz Hansen's point of view on how unique identifiers will be used in the future. So kindly kick it off.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Morten, and I'm a sustainability manager of Fritz Hansen. I've been working there for the last year and a half. Before that, I worked with digital product passports in the Netherlands, and that was mainly recycling digital product passports. And now we are looking into a much broader and much more insightful and transparent digital product passport, which we did a pilot that has just been launched. Can you share the website, or do I share that? So instead of making a big project out of this and figuring out all the digital solutions and the interaction between suppliers and etc., we chose a kind of accidental pilot like this. So I was sitting at an event with Lifestyle and Design Cluster, I think half a year ago. And besides me was Birgitte from Spor, and at the same meeting was Marete from MeCollect. And we started discussing digital product passports, etc. How do we see traceability? How do we work with this in the future? And then came up an order for the new headquarters of Danish Crown. So in this case, Danish Crown was both the customer and the supplier of the leather. Spor is a part of Danish Crown, and because of their market of food industry, traceability is already a part of how they work. So if you get sick by eating a steak, they need to know exactly what farm it came from, and that gives them the huge insights into traceability of leather. What you see to the right here is the outcome of the project. So individual digital product passports for each of the products that were supplied to the headquarters of Danish Crown. In the digital product passports, we have everything from circular models, repair, ordering of spare parts, how do you maintain your products, about the designers, about the materials. And you can go into details on anything you want. Carbon footprint, there's details about, of course, the leather. So when you sit in a chair at the headquarters of Danish Crown, you know exactly which cow it came from, when it was born, when it was slaughtered, where it was tanned, etc., etc. So all this information is in the digital product passport already. And I think for the perspective from Fritz Hansen is that if we only do this for compliance, then it's hard work. It's much more interesting to look at the competitive edge you get by doing this. And for Fritz Hansen, there's a lot of benefits in going into digital product passports. Authenticity of our products, so you know that it is a real Fritz Hansen product. The thing about reselling the products, who's owning it, who refurbished it, who repaired it, that gives a higher value to the resale markets. And that is all in this and possible with this digital product passports. So now we are getting a lot of learnings, we're getting a lot of knowledge of how to cooperate with suppliers, how to share the data, how to get the data in, and also trying to test out these circular models. And that gives us a lot of learning before we roll this out in a big way, because there's a big difference for us rolling this out for the 250,000 products we make every year, or the 10 million products we have in the market. We did this in a very practical way. So it was done by Excel sheets, sharing of data manually. There was no blockchain involved in this. The platform was done by MeCollect, so we had a platform to get this data. In our factory in Poland, where we had to put in the RFID chip, was done in a manual way, and that meant that we could do this in a very short time. So from idea to full product passport, it was about 3 months, and I think that was really efficient, both from cost sides and resources, and it gave us a lot of learnings and a lot of insights in how to do this. And also a lot of practical issues, of course, because not only was it a new digital product passport, it was also a new leather from Spor. So it was biodegradable and compostable. And when we put that in water in our factory, it blurred out. So we had some technical issues. We've had some data issues, but it was all solved because it was a very practical, quick fix, Scrum way of working. And we're really proud of the results. There's a lot of insights in this tool. A lot of people have been working on it and helping us realize this results. And what we're looking into now is, so what are the next steps? Because now it's there and we can test it. People that go to the office of Danish Crown can see and test it directly. Because I think we're only going to be compliant in many years, but it's a lot more interesting to do this now for us. And we have now set up a team internally. When we look at what steps can we do this in, what kind of products will we do it for, what assortment will we do it for, and there's a lot of interesting things coming from us based on this product, because it's not only about the new products we service and produce. We started refurbishing, so all the old products coming through our factory can also be chipped and put the history in the product. So yeah, I think that's it for me for now. A quick intro to our digital product passports and some thoughts on how we move forward from here.
Wow, thank you, Morten. This was fantastic. I think your example demonstrates in a very tangible way how a networking technology like blockchain is supported by a great network, and by being very close to the people you can collaborate with Spor, with MeCollect, with also, in all modesty, Lifestyle and Design Cluster and CBS. And then kind of taking what has been so special for Fritz Hansen and quality furniture, always, which has been a serial number, which is kind of the old school way of a unique identifier, and then just blowing it out and preparing it for what we both are capable of doing and also what we will be required to be doing quite soon. Yeah. So thank you so much. This has been very
welcome.
And also your drive and your speed with this, kind of quoting Nike, just do it. And doing it while running. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think now that we've been into the engine room of one of Denmark's best furniture brands, we'll pivot from furniture to fashion and welcome Kim Rode Mogensen, who is the founder and CEO of Textile Pioneers, and have you present Kim. So Kim, please briefly tell us whom Textile Pioneers are, and then share your experience with unique identifiers on the products that you've been producing. And also elaborate a little bit on what the value is for your customers when Textile Pioneers enable them to buy traceable products from you guys. So and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for letting me. Yeah, so my name is Kim. I am one of the co-founders of Textile Pioneers. We produce garments out of waste materials, out of recycled materials. So that is like cut-offs from the factories. It's PET bottles made into new polyester. We are even looking into making PET garments into new polyester, PET garments, old polyester garments into new garments in recycling. We are looking into making old cotton garments into new garments, and we're even looking into banana, which is waste from the food industry. And all these kind of method which we are producing in creates, first of all, when we started, it creates a hassle in finding them, because if we didn't know anything about recycling 8 years ago when we started, our factories, what we considered our factory back then were the stitching, the CMT factories. If we didn't know anything, they didn't know anything at all. So the only way that we could sort of proceed with this were to find who actually collected and sorted the PET bottles, collected and sorted the cut-offs. So if there were a supplier more, then we would have a meeting with that supplier. And right now, when we are looking at our supply chain, we see our supplier as the people who are collecting the waste and are handling the waste, and the rest of the suppliers in the supply chain are only what is that called? Are only at only changing our suppliers or developing our suppliers, waste. So yeah. So we have the full transparency of the whole full supply chain, and our customers are everything from fashion brands over to events, sports clubs, workwear, etc. So we were having two issues when we started this. The main issue were that it was rather difficult to explain how can what is it we do and what is the whole process. So, for instance, if we were talking with a fashion brand, we could explain to the buyer the whole process. How do we recycle? What is mechanical recycling? What is thermal recycling, etc. But the main problem, as we have all tried this funny game in kindergarten where we were sitting in a circle and one person was telling a little story and it went all the way through the circle, and then the last person should tell the story from there, you lose a lot. So when we were telling to the buyers, when it had to go all the way through the system from the buyer to the sales manager to the sales staff to the shop to the workers in the shop and to the end consumer, the story were totally different, and at some point the story wasn't even right. So we were looking into finding a system, first of all, to be transparent about what we do, and secondly, to be able to reach the end consumer, to tell the story. So we hooked up with the brand tag, and Heidi, you can show how it looks. So what we do is we have this QR code which are on every garment. So in the on the hand tag and also on the garment itself, there is a QR code which the customer can then scan. And then now this is of course made in a mobile version. So what you see here is what you see on your mobile when you scan it. So the first part is actually, if you zoom a little out again, not in but out again, it make it a little bit more clear. Yeah. So the first part here is actually the part which are telling about your product, right? So it gives you a picture, it gives you the name, the SKU, the color, the material. It gives you the certificates, and if you scroll a little bit down, it gives you who made the product. So that is sort of the information which comes to the garment. Not the information, but yeah, but all the details about the garment, right? And then if you scroll down, we can tell a little bit about the garment. We can give you all the certificates. So you have here the GRS. Yeah, you can open it. This is only made like a template. So this is not a real certificate, but it's just to show that we have the certificate here. So we can upload all the certificates, both the GRS certificates, but also CEDEX or BSCI or whatever ethical certificates the factory has. And if you go back to the blockchain, then here we can tell the life of the garment. So for instance, here, the first thing is the collecting. So we can say that the bottles made for this t-shirt were collected in the city of Mussoorie in Tamil Nadu in Southeast India, and they were collected in week 26 in 2022. Then the next step is the whole sorting process. The next step again is transferring it to yarn. So we have a video which I recorded myself from the factory, which shows the whole process of recycling PET bottles. It shows how simple it is to recycle PET bottles, and that is one of the issues I had when we started looking into recycling, because how can a PET bottle which are very hard and stiff, how can that actually turn into something very soft? Were there a lot of chemical processes, and how is that all? How was that? And that we can explain here. We can upload all the certificates, and then yeah, you can just scroll, and then we have the spinning, we have the knitting, we have the making of the garment, and we can say wherever whatever city it is made in. And then we have the impact. So it says here that your garment is made out of 2.4 single-use plastic bottles, and it's the savings in CO2. And then the thing is actually that the top part, where we have all the information about the garment, everything which are SKUs, pictures, what it's made out of, that we cannot change. But the lower part, so when we create the QR code, that keeps that is sort of the blockchain part. But all the lower part we can change randomly. So that means that if we make something for an event, let's say a festival, then we can show all this, but we can also have one thing before the festival, another thing under the festival, and a third thing after the festival. And actually the customers or our customers are liking this a lot because it gives them the possibility to reach the end consumer and actually tell them what is this garment and what are we as a company. So I have not yet met any customer who are not interested in getting this into their garment. So we are so here in a couple of in 1 month time, the first garment will hit Denmark with this QR code on. I don't know if there's so much more to say. The main thing is for me sort of two things. First, that everybody we speak to are aware of the demands coming for digital passport. So they are very interested in starting this up. And as I say to everybody, that's the second thing, is that, you know, it's better to start up with this now and then get used to how to work with it before the demand comes, because now we can make a lot of mistakes and failures and learnings and everything, and it doesn't affect. It's not by law yet. And then the next thing and the last thing is that we are looking into now to get all the life cycle LCA things, all the CO2 emission and everything else into this as well. So that will come within 6 months or so. We will have everything on all our garments.
Thank you so much, Kim. This was super excited, and Heidi almost jumped out of her chair when she saw the fetching from blockchain icon loading. I know you think it takes too long, but we were really excited about that part. I think we wanted to ask you about your perspectives of where this is going, but I actually think you already answered that. And to kind of stay in your image of the kids game of listen and tell, I think from our perspective, from Lifestyle and Design Cluster's perspective, what this enables is both to prevent greenwashing by having your accurate information locked in, and also enabling you to comply with what's coming. So we very, very much encourage all of you guys who are here to use a forum like this as an educational day and the other activities as the sandbox that you're talking about, Kim, to prepare yourselves for what is coming, to learn, to ideate, to fail fast, but then hopefully get a lot better before this becomes mandatory.
Yeah, and just one thing, the thing is, and then we have a lot of things about and issues about all the regulations which are coming. And a lot of people are thinking about, this is really a lot of work for us to do, and how do we actually do this? But working with it like this, then you can turn it into something useful. So you take everything on the regulation part, and then you turn it into information towards your customer. So that is how we present it to our customers, that this is an information tool to share information and everything about to the direct customer.
Thank you very much. And with Morten's example from Spore and the traceability and transparency that they provide, that is a very well proven concept for them, that is actually something that is highly desirable for their customers. But now we will go back to the reflections you had earlier on, because we're going to break up now into smaller groups, where we'd like you to reflect and talk about what you've learned thus far, and again, talk about what are the biggest opportunities and also obstacles as you see them for your business with unique identifiers. What more would need to be known for you guys in order to get started and started with testing? So Heidi is creating the breakout rooms now, and we'll do this for roughly 15 minutes, and then we'll come back. So kindly discuss these questions, and we'll leave the questions on the screen momentarily, and then we'll come back. And you'll be distributed randomly.
Hey, Heidi. I wasn't sure if I should also join the record.
Go ahead, please do.
Okay, then can I still join it now, or do you have to sign me again?
I'm looking.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I'll try and see what I can do about you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. To ting, jeg lige skal- sådan, vi kan jo godt hoppe ind og ud af rummene her, men jeg tror egentlig, se her, der sidder June, og det der, det må være Merete, Emma.
Ja, Michael,
Det er
ja.
jo så, du ved, dem tænker jeg, de skal nok kunne snakke sammen. Her sidder Kim og Morten og altså,
Det er et rimelig fedt rum at sidde i det der.
rimelig god. Jeg har ingen idé om det, men så virkelig, og der sidder Thomas og Günther. Jeg håber med de der to, de ikke kun er studerende. Ellers så sidder de lidt dumt. Det ved jeg heller ikke, men Lotta og Kintope, det er godt. Og så sidder Birgitte, Kasper, Karl Emil og det Grete. Så det er også en virkelig god gruppe. Det er lidt fedt at prøve at lige slippe dem, og bare lige se. Fordi i bund og grund, så tænker jeg egentlig, at alle folk kan godt snakke selv, når de bliver sendt i det.
Jeg tænker også, at nogen i hver rum, der sådan er god til lige at sparke det lidt i gang, hvis det halter.
Ja. Men det jeg har gjort andre gange, det er, at så hopper jeg lidt ind og ud af nogle af møderne, så er de så kun 2 tilbage. Skal vi hoppe ind til dem? Måske lige. Bare lige.
It's extremely hard. So
great. But before we break off, we would like to leave you with a little homework for the next educational day, because we are going to pick up again. And the homework that we'll put on the screen now is to pitch the idea of unique identifiers at a product level to a coworker, and have a conversation with your coworker on the opportunities that product identifiers could unlock. Would this be interesting? And if yes, which parts? And what would be the first step towards it? And we'll pick up on the homework when hopefully we see all of you again at the next educational day, and that'll take place on November 3rd, where we'll go over industry standards and supply chain. Personally, I'm very much looking forward to that. And as a housekeeping note, again, we'll share all the presentations from today with you, and we'll also send you an evaluation form that we really hope you'll take the time to fill out, because this is your opportunity to give us feedback so that we can keep these educational days current and at the level they need to be. So kindly take the time to submit this to us. And then I think there's not much left for us to say, but thank you to all of you all of you listening and participating. Thank you to Thomas and to Jan and to Annabelle and Karl Emil and Lotta and to Kasper and very much to Morten and to Kim. This has been from our part super exciting. So thank you for joining today, and have a great rest of your day, and be back on November 3rd. We look forward to seeing you.